Hi, and welcome back to Content with Character. We're going to do something really different today, hence the different introduction. I'll get to introducing myself in a minute, but we got to kick off with a funny story. So, happy April Fool's Day. Joke is on me. If you're listening to this live time, it's April Fool's Day. And today's episode was put together for your listening pleasure with the goal of properly celebrating my 100th episode of the show. With my first podcast, I never celebrated the milestones, and 300 odd episodes in, I never really stopped and acknowledged just how much consistency and commitment that all took. I never made any noise before I eventually just decided to let it go together. So we're not doing that this time around. This time we are celebrating the milestones, and the biggest thus far is that this is episode 100. So I wanted to do something really special for the 100th episode and bring in my first ever and probably my only guests. One of my best friends, my husband, and a close online collaborator friend. And my goal is to have them share thoughts on today's topic with you in addition to mine. But here's where the April Fool's joke comes in. On Tuesday, March 18th, not April Fool's Day, mind you, I woke up to an email from Buzzsprout telling me that was episode 100. And it was all this confetti and congratulations. And I'm like, okay, but I thought April Fool's Day was episode 100. I have a list, and somehow my meticulous list of episodes did not match up. And so the milestone came and went 2 weeks ago. Womp womp, which means that today is really only episode 100-ish. But because my idea was not just a shiny object, and I think that it is solid gold, I said, you know what? The show must go on. And we are going to celebrate episode 100-ish with 3 of my favorite people. These people are going to shine a little light from their perspectives on how to differentiate between shiny objects and solid gold. What you need to consider when you're raring to go and ready to pursue that next big idea. And then at the end, I'll come back with you and we're going to reflect. We're going to reflect on what it really means when we have that constant flow of ideas and how we can actually take those tangible steps to avoid going down rabbit holes that are really just glorified distractions. I'll introduce my guests individually as they hop on and join me, but we are going to be bringing in one of my best friends, Lindsay Dreyer, my close friend and collaborator, Barb Davids, and my husband, the man, the myth, the legend, Jason Aborn. And in case you and I have not met, I am Emily Aborn. I'm a small business copywriter and content marketing consultant, and I am a wife, an auntie, a best friend, a collaborator, a daughter, all of those fun things, and a dog mom to Mr. Clyde. If you ever want to learn more about me or what I offer or connect with me, I love hearing from you. This is a conversation, and that means it goes 2 ways. My website is emilyaborn.com, and you can always find the ways to connect with me in the show notes. So without further ado, let's get into the 100-ish episode of Content with Character. My first guest is one of my best friends, Lindsay Dreyer, who is owner of City Chic Real Estate and a bunch of other stuff. She'll tell you about it in a second. Here she is. Okay, here we go. So, Lindsay, I know that you're one of my BFFs, but I would like to know who you are, what you do for a living, what you do professionally.
Okay.
What's your story?
I am definitely what you would call a multi-passionate entrepreneur. As my daughter says, Mom, how many businesses do you have? And I tell her 4, and she's like, that's too many.
Name them all.
Okay. We have City Chic Real Estate, which is my first baby. She just turned 14. It's a real estate brokerage in the Washington, D.C. area. I have a coaching company where I coach real estate agents called Happy Agent Co. And I also am an energy healer and a psychic medium.
I forgot about all your businesses.
No, I have too many.
Okay, so the reason I brought Lindsay on for this topic specifically is because she does get a lot of great ideas. She runs with a lot of great ideas, but she also knows that fine line of when to drop something and when not to keep on pursuing an idea. So she's like a shiny object. Yes, you may think that, but then it's like, it was actually a gem. You know what I mean? Like I actually found a gem and presented it to you all. So Lindsay and I first met actually because you had a podcast at the time called The Joyful Preneur.
Yes.
And now tell me about the decision to move away from that and start the podcast that you have now and a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, so I had the Joyfulpreneur podcast for a year and I met so many incredible women entrepreneurs, like loved every single conversation I had. But when I looked at return on investment in terms of my business, there was literally zero. So while it was fun, I was investing way too much time and energy into something that just didn't have a high return on investment. So I let that kind of sleep. I then launched Happy Agent Co. and realized I actually think this would be a really good company to launch a podcast for because it is kind of niche down. And so I launched that at the beginning of this year, 2025. And it's been really fun. Like this one's not so many guests, but it's more solo. So that has actually made it a lot less work and a lot less labor intensive because I don't have to do as much editing. So I definitely think that was like, I learned so much and then kind of had to like put a pin in the Joyfulpreneur. And then when I launched Happy Agent Co., it was just so much easier.
You are speaking my language with the podcast. As you know, I also had a primarily interview based show and I got to meet so many fantastic people and it was amazing for 5 years. And then I realized, same as you, the return on investment and also some of the emotional and like physical return on investment because it's a lot of work.
So much work.
And I think that's one thing with the shiny objects that I kind of want to help like steer people away from is like thinking through the actual work that goes into being consistent with something. So but like you, I started my own, which is mostly solo, except like with the exception of just this one. April Fool's joke, everyone.
I'm so honored.
And it is so much easier. And I'm also noticing just like a lightness that comes along with it by way of me just having a little bit more fun, I think, and doing kind of steering it where I want to take it.
There's freedom in it because you can really focus on what you feel like focusing on. And if you feel like pivoting literally the day before an episode launches, you can be like, all right, I don't want to do that one this week. I'm recording a new one. So I think I love freedom. So like just having that freedom to like have that schedule you can make is really fun.
Agreed. Okay. So like I said, you seem like a person who does chase a lot of great ideas, but I have noticed this also when you do, you go into it 100%. And then that way you kind of have a good, accurate reading on whether or not you want to keep this thing going or not because you put so much into it. So my question for you is when you do get an idea, how do you what's kind of your time frame or maybe these guardrails that you have about how long you're going to jump in for and let it see where it unfolds?
I think it starts with the conception of the idea where I really visualize what it's going to look like in my business. It's going to look like in my life. I am a big proponent of your business should fit into your life and not your life fit into your business. So I really try to do a good job of how much time is this going to take? How much energy is this going to take? Does this give me freedom to go on vacation when I want to? Or is this going to be just like a major time and energy suck? So if it passes that gut check first, then I get into the later down the road, like how much is this going to take in terms of will I know this is a win or not? Sometimes that's a month. Sometimes that's 3 months. Sometimes that's a year. So I know with the Happy Agent Co podcast, I've committed to a year of doing that podcast. And what's really cool is the podcast has already converted to one high ticket coaching client. So for me, that's great feedback that I now know that the podcast actually is working. I don't get that many listeners. I mean, honestly, it's probably 25 per episode, but I really think it gives people a way that when they do discover me, it's a way for them to get a vibe of what I'm like, what it's like to work with me, who I am as a person. So I think that's a good example of I gave it a year, but it's already paying dividends.
Yeah. And it's also a good point. Like, not all shiny objects look this, not all of them look like going viral or getting thousands of downloads, right? Because I'm with you. We don't need a ton of listeners actually to create conversions. One thing you brought up, which I want us to get into towards the end again, just like to really walk people through it, is the visualization piece.
Oh, yeah.
I think that is so important. The other question I had for you though is, do you have a place where you like track your ideas? So I have this like brain dump master sheet, and the ideas that I'm like, oh, that sounds really fun, stay on that sheet until they basically get wiped off. Like when I've kind of been like, you know what, it's been there too long and I haven't taken action on it, must not be that shiny. Do you have anything like that?
Of course I do.
Okay, good. Tell us about it, please.
Who doesn't have one? Okay. I mean, I don't know. So mine is similar. It used to just be a Google Doc, and now it has converted over to a ClickUp doc. So I converted all of my back-end project management and everything over to ClickUp this month, which was so amazing. But yeah, it's basically just a doc, and I just have my running tally of everything that I want to just have ideas on. And like, I'm with you. It's like, don't pursue them right away. You can kind of let them marinate, which is nice. And then yes, it's always edited. Like I probably review it like twice a month just to see what's going on.
Yeah, same. And I think I just want to add a layer on for people that are like, ooh, I actually like that. I don't have anything like that. You could even start building out like sub documents. So for my podcast, for example, Content with Character, I said, I'm not going to do this unless I can come up with 50 topics. So obviously those aren't all going to live in the same document that everything else in my life lives in. So I created a second one that was like, all right, let's start building this idea out. And you and I have done that too with an event, which I want to get into next. So, you know, sometimes there are people in our lives who could present you with like pretty much any idea. And you're like, yes, just tell me where to be and when to be there. And I'm doing it. And I do feel you and I have that. I mean, that's like how you agreed to this, I think. But we also know that we can be really, really honest with each other if like we don't have the capacity. So just a little backstory, like Lindsay and I got this idea for an event. It's a good idea. It's a wicked good idea.
A really good idea. It will happen one day.
And it's not a shiny object. It aligns with both of our business. Like it's a wise business decision. And we just, as we mapped out the idea, we realized we actually, neither of us have capacity right now. We're totally zapped, and it would take a lot of effort. I mean, getting the idea is one thing, selling the idea, totally different thing.
Yeah, I think that's what it was, is like the marketing of it, the execution of it. I'm like, oh, now that I'm like actually visualizing it, I don't think I have that energy.
Exactly. Yeah. So let's take me back to this visualization, because I love that. I want to hear like what you see people struggle with when it comes to shiny object syndrome. Maybe it's real estate agents specifically. And then what advice you would give them to help them get a little more clarity.
Yeah, I think with shiny objects, we're attracted to them because they're going to solve a pain point for us. And I think we are all looking for that magic pill of, especially with real estate agents, like they're busy, they have very stressful jobs. They're looking for that magic pill that is going to make their life easier and that is going to bring them more business. And I think entrepreneurs in general, like we're all in business development. We all have to do sales to some extent and get customers. So any hack or any shortcut, we're like, yes, let me do that. That sounds really good. So I think the issue comes in when we aren't really crystal clear. Technology, I think software, that has become a very large shiny object for most entrepreneurs, which is, oh, it's only $30 a month for this software. It's only $100 a month for this subscription. But we really aren't intentional about what problem is this specifically solving in my business, and is it going to deliver and actually solve that problem? And then the other thing is there return on investment on this spend or the energy that I'm going to invest in learning the software, using the software? So I just don't think a lot of people go through that mental math. They really are just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. It's going to solve my problem. I'm spending $50 on it right now. And then it just sits on the shelf.
And I think you can apply the same exact logic to like courses and all of those things, because same thing. And I've implemented something for myself where, like, if I'm trying to make a decision on a course or something educational, maybe I do need the skill. Like maybe I actually do need
Totally.
that. So I ask myself 2 questions. One, when am I going to make a decision on this buy? And I do not pull that. Like, you know how everybody loves to get you in quick.
Oh my gosh, yeah, the tripwire. Like you have 9 minutes and 50 seconds for this deal.
I'm like, no, I will give myself 9 days. Thank you. And I will read your sales page 10 times in that time.
And it will be the same price. Like even though they said it's 9 minutes.
And number 2, I look for different ways that I might achieve the same goal. So that's another thing too. It's like it might actually be a pain point. It might actually be something that you need a problem,
right?
Like a solution to. And this is not the only way to do it.
Right. That's actually a really good point, is that there's sometimes redundancy that we don't realize. So maybe you have a piece of software or there's something you bought 5 years ago that you forgot about and you've already spent money. You've already spent time learning something where it's like investigate what you have already, what skills you have already. And maybe you don't need to invest in the shiny object. Maybe you can just use what you got.
And sometimes go for it.
Sometimes, yes, go for it. I love a good shiny object.
I'm gonna go chase one right after this. Okay, what advice would you give to somebody who is trying to weigh out a decision like this right now? Like, what would be kind of your take home, mic drop? Don't drop these ones; they're very expensive.
Okay, no, I'm not going to. This is probably the nicest podcast recording situation I've ever been in. So I think my advice is, first of all, we're gonna do it. Like we're going to chase shiny objects. We are all human beings. It happens. I like experiments. So sometimes they can be an experiment. And sometimes you just need to realize it was an experiment and it was an experiment that didn't work. So don't be scared to just be like, oh, I spent $97 in that course and that was a big mistake. That was an experiment. And maybe you won't make that experiment again or a mistake again. So I think first of all, you're human. It's natural. Like we just have to kind of know we do that. And then I also think you need to have some self-awareness on when you make good decisions. I do not make good decisions at midnight when I am scrolling Instagram and getting targeted by everything. That is a bad. I have a do not buy policy when I am scrolling in the middle of the night. That is a no. I will send myself the link in an email. And the next business day, I will review that and I will be like, that was not something you needed to buy. Good job avoiding it. So I think know yourself and know when you're making impulse purchases and when you're not. And then setting up your kind of guardrails to protect yourself. And like one of mine is I just don't buy things in the middle of the night. And like maybe it's a dollar amount. It could be like how long you review something like you, but having those guide rails to keep you like on the straight and narrow, I think is really important. But then also sometimes it's okay to just go off the guardrails and try something new. I think as entrepreneurs, like that's what you want to do. Like it's fun to try new things. And if I never tried anything new, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Agreed. And great job if your experiment just so happens to be like at an affordable price, right? And then the big purchase would be larger and you're like, okay, I lost only $600 instead of $6,000. And
I have made $25,000 shiny object mistake syndrome and on software purchases. Like that's one software purchase because you're locked into a year contract. I regret it with all of my being. And I will tell you, that was about 10 years ago. I will never, ever, ever make that mistake again. It made me more diligent in researching. It made me more diligent in reading the contract. It made me more diligent all around. So even if you do make the mistake, you learn from it.
I was just going to say, yes, exactly. And then I just want to encourage people to take you up on that visualization idea. Like really let your mind go all the way through. And I would say like, sit with the best case scenario and also sit with the worst case scenario and say, am I okay with either of those? Because if it is truly an experiment, like you don't know what you're going to get and you have to be okay with whatever comes out on the other side.
Totally. And then another thing is I am obsessed with using ChatGPT for my visualizations now. So I use it for all of my visualization stuff. So I'm like, okay, I'm thinking of a new product line or a new coaching offering. What would that look like? And what would my schedule look like? Like, how would you structure the delivery of that service? So I love ChatGPT for the visualization piece because sometimes that can just be like your best friend who's like, here's what it's going to look like. And I'm like, ooh, yeah, that's bad. Or it helps you with pricing, or it just really helps you get like my favorite thing to do is whenever I have like a new offering, because I love offering new things. That's my shiny object. I'm like, here's some more shiny objects, real estate agents. But I love to put the sales page. I'm like, ChatGPT, write me a sales page for this new course I'm offering. And that either gets me super pumped or I'm just like, that sounds boring.
Yeah.
So AI really is fun. It can be really fun to visualize.
Okay, Lindsay didn't even know this, but she has set me up for 3 episodes that are happening this month. So thank you, Lindsay.
Oh, you're so welcome.
But additionally, thank you for taking this time and sharing your wisdom with us.
Thank you for having me. I love you.
I love you. Okay, next I'm bringing in Barb Davids. Barb Davids is a website marketing consultant. And what's fun about this is we've never actually met in person, but we have collaborated a whole lot. We originally met on Podmatch, which is one of my favorite collaboration platforms of all time. We'll get into that more in a bit. And Barb always has so many good ideas that she brings to the table. Hi, Barb. Welcome to Content with Character. You're one of only 3 guests ever on my show, so you can do a little dance party over there.
Yeah, thanks. I am doing a little dance party. I'm pretty excited about that. Thanks for having me on. I always love our discussions because you're one of those people that when I'm done with the conversation, I'm just like happy.
Me too. And you also somehow managed to give me more ideas than I had going in. So I love that about our discussions. We always create more energy and more ideas. Okay. I told Barb before she joined that she's going to have to forgive me because I'm a little out of practice as a host. So it'll be fun. Barb, before we get into the topic, can you just tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you do in your own words?
Mm-hmm. I am essentially the non-woo-woo side of me is a marketing consultant. So I help small business owners get more website traffic. And I also have a podcast called The Small Business Sweet Spot. I just try to help simplify the complexity or what people think is complex about SEO and content marketing, trying to make it very simple because I feel like it gets very confusing out there. So essentially, I help people get more website traffic. I help them track it. I help them come up with ideas, anything in around marketing the website for a business. On the woo-woo side, I would say I'm embracing this more. I cultivate inspiration and energy in others. And I think that really goes hand in hand with helping small business owners. Like I help them get to where they need to go and hopefully in a very energizing way. So not to give them more to do, like more ideas like I do you. It feels like I'm always giving stuff to people, but
All right. And Barb and I met on Podmatch, which is, I mentioned this before, but it's like one of my favorite collaboration platforms. And what I really love about our collaboration, like we just did one podcast interview, but it was such a good example of how a collaboration can lead to more collaborations and more ideas. And one thing I've noticed about you, which I think is a little bit different than a lot of entrepreneurs I talk to, is that yes, you present me with like new ideas and new collaborations and such, but they're all very aligned. Like it doesn't seem from the outside that you're the kind of person that does chase a lot of shiny objects or go down a whole bunch of rabbit holes. So I'd love to hear your own kind of like relationship with shiny objects, as they say.
my shiny objects are hidden, so you can't see them. I think it comes more in the form of procrastination somewhat too, but my shiny object syndrome really stems from like writing things down. If I get an idea like in the shower I'm running, I have like a crap ton of voice memos from when I'm running. I get all these great ideas and I'm thinking, oh, this would work or that would work or this would be a good idea, that would be a good idea. And then I have to rein myself in and be like, okay, but is that really what is going to be helping my end goal or whatever I'm trying to do in my business at the time? So my whole business revolves around helping small business owners. So if it doesn't have something to do with that, I need to step back and say, okay, do I have time to do the shiny object? Because if I don't, then I don't want to spend my time on that. And I guess it kind of goes back and forth because sometimes, I'll sit and eat a whole bag of chips. And that doesn't help anybody. But I think, I just hide them. I hide them well, and I just kind of ignore them sometimes, quite frankly, when I get a lot of ideas or something seems like a good idea. If I mark it down and write it down or do the voice note, I try to come back to it. I used to keep a spreadsheet, Emily. You will appreciate this a lot. I used to keep a spreadsheet, like with content ideas. You have to keep a list of those so that you can come back to them,
Agreed.
write about them. Yeah. So I used to keep this like weighted matrix type of thing. So I would put all of the content ideas in this sheet. And then it would have a list of like 5 criterias. And it would be like, okay, is it easy to write? Does it elicit something? I forget what the words were, but it was really phenomenal. I haven't used it for a long time. And it would do different things from an SEO perspective, but also a client perspective, and then also my website goals perspective. On a theory of 1 to 5, you would mark each one. Does this blog post meet that criteria? And then it would have a number at the end. And so those blog posts that have a higher number, I know that those have more credibility to them in an overall picture, and I should spend more time on that. But I stopped doing that too.
That honestly sounds like a lot to manage. Like mine are
Yeah.
just in a random brain dump somewhere, and then I go back and I do clean them up. So one question I had for you, especially from the SEO lens, I think, because our websites and our blogs and our content is an area where I see people getting a lot of ideas and they're not necessarily all beneficial to their business. So where in the world of SEO, like how do you kind of use SEO as a tool to help not chase shiny objects? And secondarily, does ROI, whether it's monetary or emotional or etc., does that play in at all to your own personal like decision making?
Definitely. It comes along with the idea of how to measure and track, I think. So when you're doing SEO, you have to actually understand it in order to be able to say, okay, chase this idea down and do that, chase that idea and down and do that. Because sometimes if we think that, like, let's say one page isn't getting enough conversions, whatever that conversion may be, it's either a newsletter download or a course purchase or something, and we want to maybe change something on the page. But if you can't measure it, there's no point in putting it into place, in my opinion, unless there's something that you can do to actually know that it's going to be working. So spend time on things that, well, now I'm going to have to retract that. Because there's some things that I do that I just do by gut. And I do follow that sometimes too. So I don't really know if that answered your question.
I think that's a great answer because I don't always think everything turns into ROI on paper. And I don't think
Yeah.
that everything that is worth following is like measurable. And then sometimes it's not measurable until years and years and years down the road. And that's why this is
Hmm.
so hard. That's why this is such a hard decision when you do see a good idea.
Yeah.
What do kind of like your clients and other entrepreneurs, I guess, that you interact with? What do you see them struggling with in this area? You recently, I also want to bring this into it because she had a great framework. You had a guest on your show recently who talked about like focusing on one thing a year. And I think that would be helpful for so many entrepreneurs because so many entrepreneurs go into the year and they're creating this thing and then they get distracted and start creating this thing and the list goes on. So
Yeah.
talk to me about like what you see other people struggle with and like how maybe you could what kind of things you would give to help them.
So it's definitely a mindset thing. I had struggled with that just recently with a new thing that I had published as far as a resource for small business owners, like for the quote lead magnet for my website and how to get people to sort of like a practice work with me almost. And because SEO is so unheard of. And then I also have a client that started a new project over there for her brand photography. And it's a monthly thing that she puts on as an event. And
Mm.
I'll go with that example first, because about 3 months, because I did explain, I said we need to keep this going for at least 6 months to a year to see any effect, because it takes time for things to get traction. And because when we see it, we live it every day, but other people that see our content, they see one thing and they forget about it 5 seconds later. And so you have to keep like pushing it out there, pushing it out there, pushing it out there. And there was a feeling of after 3 months, there were a couple people that signed up for it, but it wasn't a slam dunk, right? Like I think we're always looking for that answer, that one answer that's going to solve all the problems, but it wasn't providing maybe enough traction, or it didn't feel like it at the time. And now we're in our 4th month, and now we can start to feel it. But it is hard
Mhm.
to, as a business owner, keep that one thing in mind, because we're like, oh, I'm spending so much time on it, but you have to try to find the resilience in it and keep going, because people don't remember the things. They have a million different social channels that they're looking at, or they're just tired of looking online, or it's not right for them at the moment potentially. And I have to do this for myself too. I have to remember, okay, it's not doing as well as I had expected, but I also haven't given it the full year yet. And just having 2 or 3 months, that's about when it feels like things just start rolling and people start picking it up. So, and it's going to depend by industry by any means, but B2B, I think, is probably the bigger one there, where it takes a little bit of while because it's fragmented, right? You have all these people in different channels and you have your stuff in all the different channels. And technically you're only posting or pushing out once a day. And then you're doing that along with other messages or other things. So that other thing gets forgotten. It's kind of like when you write down your notes or something for yourself, you forget about that thing unless it's right in front of your face.
Yeah. Yeah. I always say like coming up with the idea is easy, but actually getting other people in on your idea is actually really, really hard. So
Yeah.
you do have to stick with it. I love that. Okay. Let's say right now I have something in my hand and I'm like, Barb, is this a shiny object or is this solid gold? How do you help me make that decision?
I am going to ask you to do something a little woo-woo maybe, and just sit and think about like, and sometimes it's hard to make this happen, but like, which one makes you happier?
Mm.
That's probably one way. Or maybe let me put it this way. Which one will you regret not doing least?
Okay, I love that actually. So
Yeah.
so I think when we wrap it or when we sum it all up, it's like put it on your idea sheet, kind of see if there's benefit to it, right? After you've let
Hmm.
it sit there for a little while and then ask yourself, am I going to regret not doing this thing?
Yeah. Because if you think like, let's say it's a month later and you're like, oh, shoot, I should have done that. Like, you know that you're probably going to regret not doing it.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I love that. Thank you. I
Hmm.
didn't actually have something in my hand that I was weighing out, but next
Emily,
time I do, I'm going to use that. All
either
right.
that or I
Thanks.
could just tell you which one to choose. I could do that. I'm very decisive like that.
I actually might do that. I like to outsource my decision making as often as possible.
That's the answer. Outsource your decision making.
Don't do that, folks. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me. This was awesome. And I will chat with you soon.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Last, but as I say, certainly not least, I have one more person to introduce you to, my husband, Jason. He is going to share about my relationship with shiny objects. I mean, he probably sees more of it than anybody else, but also his own as a business owner, as a multi-passionate, multi-curious human being. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun to see a peek behind the scenes of our relationship and probably more than you ever wanted to know about my brain. Hello, Jason Aborn.
Good afternoon.
Briefly, to catch everybody up to speed, tell them who you are. Well, I guess I kind of told them who you are, but tell them what you do for a living.
I am Emily's husband, which takes up most of my living time. But in my other time as a professional person, I own a painting business called Pitcher Mountain Painting, which services the Monadnock region.
Yes, he's an exceptional residential interior exterior painter in New Hampshire. All right. As you know, we're going to be talking about shiny objects, and I promise not to throw you under the bus. You get to throw yourself under if you want. So I'd love to hear your own kind of relationship with shiny objects. Well, we can talk about our relationship with it together. Like we had a mattress store together. We got this great idea for a podcast together. We've gotten a lot of ideas that we never actually end up doing. So talk to me about kind of your relationship with shiny objects, I guess in your personal and professional.
Okay. My relationship on a personal level is I don't have much of a relationship with shiny object syndrome, if we're calling it that. I think career-wise, I get way too nervous to kind of stop what I'm doing and start something new. Like I started painting 20 years ago and eventually became an owner of a painting business because I was like, well, this is pretty good money. And I just didn't want to start something new. So that would be like my professional shiny object. On like a personal level, like hobby wise, I do a lot of chasing, like trying different hobbies out, as you know.
Okay, well, let me ask you this because I actually think professionally speaking, that can be really, really beneficial because you become like exceptional at your craft or at your trade, right? So it probably would benefit more people to be like that professionally. So now I want to know, like, on a personal level, when you do chase lots of shiny objects, do you feel like it limits you from getting good at any one particular thing or going deep on any one particular topic? Or kind of how does that work?
Yeah, I think inevitably it's going to, if you limit the amount of time you're able to put into something, you're not going to be as good at it. So by having 15 hobbies instead of three, they all suffer. It's like a jack of all trades, master of none kind of thing.
Yeah, agreed. And thanks for being honest about the fear aspect in your business too, because I think that's the other side of the coin that I haven't even looked at in this episode.
Did I say fear? Edit that
Well,
out.
not fear. You know what I mean?
No, I'm kidding. Yeah, no, it is. I don't think that's for everybody though, because if someone's not happy in their job, I think they should look elsewhere and chase something that's viable. But if it's, for me, painting, it was a fine job. It paid the bills. I didn't mind it. And I think I'm just different in that sense.
Yeah, there's also not like a ton of shiny objects probably in the painting world, whereas some business owners kind of get new ideas to create new stuff all the time, and their jobs in and of themselves have more leeway in that.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I see. Yeah. I was thinking about actually changing careers, but
Mm.
no, there's not a lot. There's not a lot of different stuff in painting that I could be chasing around.
So, how do you decide when something is worth pursuing and when something is just a distraction? And I guess we'll just use your personal life because although I think, let me just throw this in there. Sometimes you do with like different ways of marketing yourself or stuff like that. Or like maybe I should be doing this in your painting. So how do you decide whether or not it's a go or no?
I usually leave that up to you. As far as like the marketing and stuff, I would be hopeless and helpless at if it wasn't for you, because that's just not something that I'm really thinking about, which is not good. Is it going to make my profession easier, more efficient without costing any quality?
And then what about in your personal life?
I usually find out that it's going to cost too much time, cost too much money, and I don't have the space to take it on. So I usually cut it loose. And the
Now
ones
it,
that stay, they stay and I enjoy them.
yeah, yeah. And you are good about having hobbies that I think genuinely make you happy. So,
Yeah.
and almost all of them are like also a little bit of self betterment or, self growth, like that kind of thing.
Well, I guess we'll see.
Most of them.
To be determined.
Okay. This is the part where you get to just totally tell the truth. From your perspective, what do you see my relationship to shiny objects being? Do you feel like I'm a shiny object chaser in my life and business? It's funny because I was just telling Jason this before we hit record, but I'm literally just kind of coming back from a weekend where it was totally a distraction and not what I do in life. And I feel tired from it. That is for sure.
From what I've seen, you've pivoted quite a bit, whereas maybe when you first started in this career, it seemed you were very attracted to adding things, eliminating things, like trying to pare something down or expand a different aspect. But I think once you figured out what worked, you kind of stopped doing that, maybe with some nudging. Yeah, I think you've done almost like a 180 on that.
Yeah,
Whereas
I
now
will.
you're much more reserved about venturing into something new that's untested.
I think both of us, and I think if somebody has someone in their life that can help them to weigh out those decisions, it's really, really helpful to stay focused. And you've definitely heard about all of my pivots and ideas and bringing things in just to bring things in. So I appreciate you saying that. And I do feel more focused now, I think, because I know what works. So sometimes you also just have to kind of like squirm around and experiment and throw spaghetti at
Oh,
the
no
wall.
doubt. Yeah, absolutely. Otherwise, you might be missing things that could be hugely beneficial.
Yeah. You never know which shiny object is going to change your life is the thing.
It's true. It's so true.
Okay. Wrap us up with like one piece of advice you would give to people listening who are just trying to decide, is this actually a good idea or is this just something that's a distraction right now?
I think just think it through completely. Think what are the positive potentials of this and what are the negative ones? Because if it's a course that's going to cost, half of your yearly salary, but it might generate you 10% more revenue per year, it's probably not worth it. You got to
And
just weigh these things out.
if you need help with the numbers, definitely call Jason, not me.
Yeah, don't check my math on that.
No, that's great advice. And that's a lot of what Lindsay Dreyer actually shared in her interview too. And I think to just take it home and one step further, make sure that you can sit with it going really, really well or it not hitting what the expectation you had for it. And if you can be okay with both of those outcomes, then I say it's worth pursuing.
Yeah, and if it's not going well, have a cutoff time. Like know when it's time to pull the plug.
Yeah, agreed.
Like don't just, don't not try stuff, but don't waste all of your time and effort.
Okay.
If it's not working.
Thanks for being my guest.
It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I love you.
I love you.
Okay, that's a wrap. I've kept you for quite a while, so I'll keep this part short and sweet. Big thanks, first and foremost, to my husband, Jason Aborn, Barb Davids, and Lindsay Dreyer for chasing this gem with me and sharing their wisdom with us. All the links to find each of them and connect with them will be in the show notes. And I just wanted to quickly recap and also kind of collect all the advice that they gave into one place as best as I can. So Jason was not wrong. I have professionally pivoted quite a lot in my life. I've had more jobs than I am years in age. I've had 3 businesses in total, 2 podcasts, all sorts of little things here and there. And I'll be totally honest with you, it's been really hard for me to be that way. I don't like being wishy-washy. I hate distractions. I don't like not following through with loyalty until the end. I don't like feeling scattered. I like to be focused and streamlined and make sure that things are in my lane and make sense for me. And that's just not always been the case for me. So I'm a lot more cautious now to ensure that I do have time and capacity and energy for everything I do and take on, and that it's actually up my alley and in my lane and stuff I want to be doing. So I really appreciated that he said that because I think sometimes it does take experimenting. And I think when you find what works and what you love, you can then go ahead and safely ignore a whole lot of the outside noise. But it doesn't always happen overnight. Lindsay offered the visualization tip, visualize your idea coming to fruition. Go ahead and write the sales page out. Map it out on paper. See how you feel when you are able to really watch yourself take action on your idea. Barb told us that she likes to ask herself, which thing would she regret not doing? Would you regret not taking this course? Would you regret not launching this new service? Would you regret not running that retreat? What about not trying that path? Which one are you going to regret? Or would you regret that you veered off course and got distracted by a shiny object? Jason, my numbers and efficiency man, which is one of the many reasons I love him, reminds us to look at the math, the time equation, the financial factor, the ROI, and really go ahead and weigh out the risks versus rewards in what you might be running towards. I didn't even mean to make that a rhyme, but it is. Remember, getting the ideas is easy. Seeing the ideas is simple. Chasing the ideas, piece of cake. Sticking with them, selling them, getting them out into the world. All those things, not so easy. And I want to say things obviously still threaten to distract me. I just did a workshop last year that was kind of off course. I recently also took a course where I actually knew a lot of the information taught in the course a little bit more intuitively, maybe less like scientifically and factually. And taking the course weirdly veered me off track for like a solid couple of months because I was like disconnected from like the intuition piece of it. Then, like a sucker, I actually almost invested in the higher level of this course, thinking that it would fix the issue I had created with the initial distraction. Just sharing all this to say, you know, I do this too. And then someone recently sent me an idea for a podcast that was so good. And it's like, oh my God, I am really curious about this thing, but it's totally off track. It has nothing to do with anything that I do. So my questions for myself and for you are these, and I have a bunch of them. I'm going to put them all in the show notes. Do you have time? Is this going to help you get further where you want to go or push you away from that goal and your vision? Does it detract from something that you value in life? And if so, is it worth it? Does it take away from family time or friends or clients? Do you want to do this? Will you do this and see it through until the end or until that end date that you've put in place? Is this in alignment with who you want to be known for and what you're building in your business? Do you have the resources, the time, the money, the energy? What's the best possible outcome you can imagine? What's the worst possible outcome you can imagine? And are you okay with either of those potential outcomes? Because it will be somewhere along that spectrum. Are you willing to dig deep or get help if the idea does present challenges and snags along the way? And then what kind of investment does that look like? What are the steps or assistance you might need to set this idea into motion? And are you still just as excited about the idea after you go through these questions? Because that is a tell-all. If it loses its luster quickly when you start to really break it down, it's probably just a shiny object. And as I shared with Lindsay, I also like to wait as long as possible to make decisions rather than just biting down, chomping down when the pain is raring or when the sales page copy is flashing at me. So I hope you enjoyed this special episode. I know it was different than the norm. Lots of good stuff, like I said, in the show notes, including all of these questions, links to my guests, and ways that you and I can stay connected. So celebrating episode 100-ish, and thank you so much for being here. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Content with Character. If you loved the episode, please make sure to subscribe to the podcast, rate, review, and share it with someone else you know it could help. For more content and visibility tips, visit my blog at emilyaborn.com, and be sure to connect with me on Instagram at emilyaborn. I'd love to hear how this inspired you to take action.